Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about slope-intercept form. This is important not only for graphing, but also for writing the equations of lines. And today that's mostly what we're going to be looking at is how we can determine the slope and the y-intercept from a graph and a table and convert those into an equation. So let's take a look at slope-intercept form. And slope-intercept form is used to write an equation of a line. It is also used to graph a line. It comes in the form y equals mx plus b. That is the equation for slope-intercept form. And in this equation, you will substitute for m and b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And again, the y-intercept, you should remember from previous work with graphing, is the point where a graph crosses the y-axis. And so on the y-axis, the x value is 0, and then you would just have your different values for y. All right. Equations can be written when you're given the slope and a y-intercept. This is the simplest way to write an equation. This would be the easiest case scenario for this. So if I wanted to write the equation of a line with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of -2, well, I'm going to think about my my slope-intercept form equation. So I have y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to identify from the information given what represents m and what represents b. So m is 3 because that's the slope, and it says my y-intercept is at 0, -2. Well, that means that I am at -2 on the y-axis, so my b is -2. And now I'm just going to substitute those values into the equation. So I keep the x and the y, and I just put 3 in the place of m and -2 in the place of b, and that gives me y equals 3x minus 2. All right? Now, again, I said that was the easiest case scenario. They're just giving you the numbers and you plug them into the equation. Let's look at one on a graph where we have to find some of our information. All right, and so the first thing we're going to do is step 1. We're going to look at this graph and we're going to find the slope. And then when we find this slope, it will replace m in our equation y equals mx plus b. So when I look at this to find the slope, I'm going to first identify 2 points where the line crosses through the corners of the box there. I'm 2 exact coordinates, and there I've chosen 2. And then I'm going to calculate the rise and the run. So I'm going to go up 2 and to the left 3, and up is positive and left is negative. So I have positive 2 over -3, which just simplifies to -2/3. Now, the next step in this equation is to identify my y-intercept because it is slope-intercept form, so I need a slope and the intercept. Now, when I try to identify the y-intercept, I'm looking for where the graph crosses the y-axis, and right there it is. I look at the y-axis, I see where the graph touches it, so my y-intercept in this case is at 1. So since the line crosses the y-axis at 0, 1, the y-intercept is 1. This means that 1 will replace b in the equation y equals mx plus b. And so step 3 then is to plug the slope and the y-intercept into the equation y equals mx plus b. And when we do that, we have y equals -2/3 x plus 1. All right. Now let's look at a table. And when we look at a table, again, before we want to write an equation for the function represented here. So step 1, we want to find the slope, and then that will replace m in the slope-intercept equation. And when I look at my change in y, my change in y goes down by 1, and that's a -1. And then my change in x is going up by 2. That's a +2. And when I simplify that, that is -1/2. Next thing I have to do, find the y-intercept. And when I identify the y-intercept in a table, I am looking for where x equals 0, and I want to use that y value because points where x is 0 and I have a value for y, those fall on the y-axis. And so right here is where that occurs. When x is 0, y is 3. And so the y-intercept is 3. Since y equals 3 when x equals 0, this means that 3 will replace b in our equation. And again, step 3 here is to plug the slope and the y-intercept into y equals mx plus b. and I get y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. Now, I know we went through these three examples fairly quickly. What you need is to reference these when you start doing your practice with this and identifying some of these things on your own. And the trick usually is just slope we have already done. So you'll have to become accustomed to identifying that y-intercept. And you should have had some work with that last year, but it may not be quite familiar to you. So good luck as you practice and go through these, and please remember to use these as reference. Have a great day.